Collectively, Sweet Science Experience includes brands such as the NFL, EA Sports, and Nike. They have helped numerous companies and communities understand and build strategies around the opportunity of esports, and I'm in quotes now, esports and competitive gaming as the most monetizable and entertainment juggernaut opportunity marketers have seen in a lifetime. Let's learn how to begin cracking the esports code by taking competitive gaming to corporate boardrooms, corporate brands, and facility front lines. So Tom, Jeff, take it away.
Thank you very much, Suli. I am Tom Conti. My counterpart, who will be hopping into the screen in a moment, is Jeff Odiorne. I am going to try, do I have the rights to share my screen? So,
everybody see that?
Can everybody see the slides? Yes? Excellent. Okay. Well, you know, fantastic presentation by William. I think a great way to tee up what we are going to be talking about. And as a marketing agency that has been working in the world of esports, you know, what we have been doing is making a presentation that really is meant to expose the opportunity to non-endemic brands that have heard a lot about what's happening in the category. They want to know if it's real, if it's a real sport, if there's an audience there. And we've sort of become the evangelists, if you will, for these folks that they know that it's important, but they don't know how to get into it. So we're going to break our presentation down into two components today. One is really just sort of illuminating the opportunity in terms of size, in terms of audience, in terms of trends. And then we're going to break it down into how to think about strategies to begin to get into the game. So that's our goal in the next 20 to 25 minutes, and we are leaving time for questions at the end. So with that, let's just jump right in. The opportunity that exists in esports, which is why we call it the opportunity tsunami, is truly massive. William had mentioned that you know, this is a $25 billion industry, esports alone. When you put that into gaming and competitive gaming, in the macro sense, globally, you're talking about a $160 billion industry. And that takes into consideration the production of titles, the equipment, the venues, and then content creation that's going into streaming today that is becoming not only a competitive gaming platform, it's also becoming an entertainment platform for the folks that are enthusiastic and avid followers of gaming as a sport. So it really is a tremendously large market. To put that in perspective, it's currently bigger than the music and movie industries combined. For every $10 made in movies and music, esports is currently generating $16. And also, as William had said, the audience for gaming video content is huge. It reached 944 million people in 2019. The viewership in the US is on par with the NFL. And as he also mentioned, the viewership for the World League of Legends finals in 2018 was double that of Super Bowl 52. So the eyeballs are there, the audience is there. They're enthusiastic, and they're avids. There's really no other way to describe it. And for marketers, what you need to think about is that, you know, we still have a lot of growth in front of us. What we're seeing now, we truly believe, is only scratching the surface. So the projection is 35% annual growth through 2022. And that growth is really all about the right audience for marketers. This audience is desirable. It's also large, 495 million esports enthusiasts worldwide. But for many marketers, this truly is the right audience because it breaks the mold of what, for people that are not really on the inside, may think. This isn't about the adult male living in mom's basement, right, that spends all day playing what they consider to be video games. We're talking about 18 to 34-year-old males, 65% of which are in that category, that are affluent. 45% have a household income above $75,000, and 31% report a household income above $90,000. They have buying power, and this is the group that you can consider to be that elusive male that you're not going to find in traditional media. And to the question about, is this really social media as well, something like Twitch? Absolutely. And that's where these types of interactions are happening. So if you're not getting them through the traditional approach, which you really can't, you're going to be able to find them in gaming and in competitive gaming and esports. So this is something that we think is a very important point for those marketers that are looking to get into the game. It's also very inclusive. So female participation is rising rapidly. It's currently above 30% if we look at the competitive piece of this, and we're not talking about a casual hobby. Women currently spend an average of 15 hours per week playing or watching games. And again, they're passionate about it, and they're passionate in the titles that you may not expect. They love League of Legends. They love Call of Duty. These two are at the top of their list. So yes, women, an emerging group for esports, and it will only continue to grow. And when we think about the globalization, it really is geographically agnostic. You've got great representation in all regions of the globe. And fandom is not built about the parochial interests of geography, gender, socioeconomic status, ethnicity. That's not what it's about. You have an environment where tribes are built upon fandom for games and for teams. And it just breaks down all other barriers, which is also a tremendously positive dynamic for brands that are looking to begin to promote themselves within this type of an environment. Because of that, esports is becoming a brand magnet. Currently, 1.4 billion of esports revenue comes directly from brands. This revenue is generated primarily through sponsorship dollars and media rights, but also merchandising, ticket sales, game publisher fees for things like product placements. There are many different ways that marketers are learning how to get into the game. We're going to be talking more about that in a few slides, but it is generating real revenue for the esports category, and again, will only continue to grow. And it's not only about the endemics, right? We're not talking about equipment manufacturers and titles. We're talking about 60% of sponsorship now coming from non-endemic brands. Things like snack foods, carbonated beverages, energy drinks, internet service providers. They're leading the way in this wave that is now coming in and flooding the market with investment. So this is where we really begin to try and preach the power of esports, because there are non-endemics that are achieving success in the category. And COVID-19 has accelerated mainstream adoption. For those that have been following what's been happening, essentially what we saw initially was all of the programmers, the media outlets were scrambling to try and figure out how they were going to fill holes in their sports programming. They began to partner with leagues, and we saw virtual events of traditional events that had been canceled because of quarantine actually become the de facto content that networks like ESPN were putting forth. And what they found out was it's monetizable. The audience was there, and the revenue started to chase it. What we saw from a participation standpoint was that it began to become more mainstream as well. There was a 75% increase in competitive gaming in the United States since quarantine actually took hold. And again, that's creating, as a result of all of this, we have networks that have actually started to create new deals with leagues, with teams, other partnerships to bring new programming now and post-COVID that will become part of the mainstream part of their offering moving forward. So again, greater exposure, greater representation, not only what you can do within the streaming platforms like Twitch, but now to begin to look at things like what can you be doing with traditional networks like ESPN, NBC Sports Network, and so on and so forth. Those opportunities will increasingly be presenting themselves as this goes more and more mainstream. So what it's done, it's created a very, very complex ecosystem of platforms, some that have survived and some that have not, publishers, leagues, competitions, organizations, games, and then ultimately fans. It's complicated, but there are some strategies that you can use to get inside the game if you're making your first foray as a marketer into this wonderful world that is exploding before our eyes. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Jeff Odiorne. He's our Executive Creative Director. He's going to slide into the screen, and then after that, we will take your questions.
Hello, Planet Gamer. My name's Jeff. Tom does the play-by-play. I do the color commentary. How great is that professor, William? He totally teed this world up amazingly. I just have to say as a side, like you're like the John Madden of esports in that you can take very complex schemes in a very complex world and boil it down to ketchup and mustard. That's a pretty fantastic way to be. Hopefully mine will be as common sense as that. So yeah, Tom talked a lot about what the opportunity is. What we specialize in is championing endemic and non-endemic, specifically non-endemic brands in this world, which is very different from any world we've ever marketed. Together we've each been in this 25 plus years, not to date ourselves. We keep one foot in the world of traditional marketing across automotive, food and beverage, CPG, healthcare, financial services, you name it. But along in a parallel path in the same world, we've been working in the gaming world, helping build the industry while also marketing it. So having esports come alive and in a place where these two worlds collide is pretty amazing for us. And Tom set up the actual ecosystem there. It's pretty obvious. There's a couple of very common sense business principles that we tell any client that walks in the door that wants to sort of sort their way through this landscape. The first one is that esports is a real sport. There's a lot of companies that question that. We do some work with Nike. Nike even questioned that until we gave them a gaming immersion day where we spent a full day with a lot of their top executives. And here's the key point. You can debate whether it's a real sport or not a real sport, but to all of the people that Tom mentioned on his slide and to all of the people that William mentioned, it is a real sport. They engage in it differently, but it is real to them. So if it's real to them and you want to open their hearts, minds, and wallets, you better believe it's a real sport. And like any sport, we're talking about esports today, but esports is really the tip of the spear, okay? Even if you look at like Nike's basketball strategy, they promote their top athletes, they promote the NBA, they promote the WNBA, but who they're really talking to is below the surface are the weekend warriors, the college athletes, the high school athletes, the pro-to-play athletes, the guy that's the kid or the gal that just picks up a basketball and goes and shoots for 20 minutes of exercise, right? And so this is every bit a real sport with every bit the complexities. It is not a mirror of gaming. It is a sport unto itself. The second one is go all in or stay out. This is not a fad. Hopefully William's presentation let you know that. And he only got to the tip of the spear. I'm sure his book goes much deeper into how many layers there are into this. It's not a fad. It's not a trend. It's not fly by night. Back when we first got into the gaming industry, it was kind of thought that way. It was an industry for kids that parents didn't even want the kids to do. Not true today. The kids are actually bringing in household income through esports, through competitive gaming, through this massive thing. So to any marketer, any non-endemic brand, it's not the kind of thing where you can get your cousin's best friend's brother's sister's friend to be your esports expert. Doesn't work that way. And you can't dabble. It's like, save your money, put it somewhere else, keep it in traditional marketing, try to reach these 18 to 34-year-olds, 16 to 40-year-olds actually, 12 to 40-year-olds actually, in any way you want, but stay out, save your money, or actually go in. But if you're gonna go in, and William teed this up great, what can be perceived as a problem for the industry, in that there's 50 different styles of mustard, is actually at this moment an opportunity for non-endemic brands. Big brands like Mercedes can go in and they can buy a sponsorship, they can sponsor, League of Legends, they can sponsor, a high expensive sponsorship. There's plenty of brands that can do that, and that's fine if you got that kind of coin and you want to do that. But there's a smarter way to go about it, which is that to place a lot of little bets and to actually socialize and realize that this isn't a one-to-one marketing opportunity. This is a one to a lot of little marketing opportunities that present themselves on that infographic that Tom shared. So those are the three top line, very simple, common sense business strategies that we have. So how do you get to these? The strategy, the main strategy with this crowd, in case you haven't already heard it, and you're going to hear it from some people that are going to follow us that are of this industry. The gaming world, Planet Gamer, is fueled and built by the people that participate in it. They are blender heads. They're not just into gaming. They're into music. They're into apparel. They're into art. They're into culture. They are entrepreneurs. They are generating revenue based on their passion. They built this world. They built this digital world. It's based on authenticity, authenticity, authenticity. Any brand that believes that this is still a way that you can market the way you have in the past, even to traditional sports or to other avenues, forget about it. This is the most brand audience on the planet. And so what we recommend is there's an outside game to get into this audience and to socialize with them, and there's an inside game. And what we try to develop for our customers who are non-endemic brands trying to get into the space is the inside game. And it's customizable and it's by brand, but it is not the typical, you come in and tell this group, this audience how great you are. You come in and you let them discover how great you are and let them help you. We learn as much as we talk about whenever we bring a brand into this space. That's what we mean by the inside game. So we'll use a couple of examples using the slide, the ecosystem that Tom set up. Fans can be a smart inside game. On the left, you see Ninja. Tyler Blevins is his real name. The professor mentioned him. He's probably the most famous pro gamer out there. It's definitely an outside way to come in. He started as an insider, obviously, but he's pretty famous right now. His breakthrough moment was the Ninja Fortnite Drake sort of event that happened, which actually happened kind of organically, where a rapper and a gamer came together around what was a very about to breakthrough game. And they actually shut down the internet, and they, the audience was much bigger than any Super Bowl. Okay, now that's a very good way to go. That's the outside way. The inside game is the gentleman on the right. His name is Cormac Dooley. His handle is Duelska. His game is FIFA, which is a sports sim. Not nearly as big, the sports sims, as the fantasy games when we talk about the world of esports, but still a very big piece of esports, and FIFA definitely being the biggest part of the sports sims. So we took Cormac, who was a kid who nobody really knew, who was just an avid FIFA player for Sony, over to Europe, and he played in the European Championships, which, Americans, whether it's simulated soccer or real soccer, are always an outsider. There wasn't an American in the top 150 FIFA players in the world when we did this. But we up-trained them. We did what William actually talked about. We put them in a training house. We brought in nutritionists. We brought in, other pro gamers. We brought in, and we identified this guy, and we took him over to Europe. And while he didn't win it, and oh, by the way, another American did, we mined and identified path to pro market. Guys, and there are legions of these people out there. And for non-endemic brands working the inside game, mining and identifying not the obvious top 10, not the obvious 20 expensive ones, but finding the legions of path to pro amateur gamers on their way to pro is a smart inside game. So that's a good way to deal with fans and the followers that come from that. Leagues can be a smart inside game. The obvious path, the outside game would be to do a sponsorship with League of Legends. You wouldn't do wrong there. That's a big opportunity. It's also a big expensive opportunity. The lesser known inside game is something called Challengers Uprising. Challengers Uprising is an example. They've gone out and bought the amateur license for League of Legends, for example, and they create this path to pro market where amateur gamers, much like the NBA has the summer league, or baseball, the MLB has the minor leagues. You know, there's an inside game. There's actually a market for the path to pro, the amateur. Getting to know these guys, working with a league like Challengers Uprising, not only gets you the audience that grows with them, but you have them for life because gamers are very loyal. They're always a little suspicious in the beginning, but again, if you come in and you socialize with them and you become a part of their world and you get them early, they will stick with you for life. They're not as fickle as a traditional fan. So the amateur game is a good going with an amateur league is a good inside game. Teams, and we put the word organizations in there because in the world of esports, teams are not the same as in the traditional sports world. There are organizations that get to compete in these massive tournaments that aren't necessarily the professional team. So for example, on the left, we've got the Philadelphia Fusion, which is a professional team in a professional league. And you wouldn't do wrong there, but that would be the typical way of marketing to this audience. On the right, you've got the FaZe Clan logo. FaZe Clan is one of just a number of cultural organizations who have professional gaming teams. 100 Thieves would be another one. There are plenty of them. The advantage there is those organizations, the inside game advantage there is that those organizations, while they compete in all these same major tournaments as the professional tournament teams, they actually bring in a whole cultural audience. Again, this notion of blender heads that are into art, music, culture, apparel. They're entrepreneurs. They've created their own business within the business of esports. And then in between, it's not marked here, but there is the collegiate. Universities like Full Sail University have a team called Armada. They get to participate in, but unlike traditional sports, yes, there are the specific league-based tournaments and ongoing season-long events. But on the open tournaments, it's not just the pros that get to compete. It's these cultural leagues, the cultural teams that get to compete, and of course the college teams. And they often win. So the inside game would be partnering with them. Traditional sports can be a smart inside game. Tom talked a little bit about this. We're finally starting to reach the critical mass where esports is appearing on not necessarily ESPN1, but on 2, 3, and 4. Same with Fox. We actually did something with FS1 that we had a 4-part mini-series. So we're starting to crack that code. But on the right is the logo for Barstool Sports. Barstool Gaming is just one of the things that Barstool talks about. Dave Portnoy's the founder. You might have seen him. He's starting to throw in his hat in the political ring now. Again, just getting into many different cultural things. But what Barstool did was they sort of upended the sort of traditional way of communicating traditional sports, aligning yourselves, and there are others, but aligning yourselves with even a Bleacher Report, but any traditional sports commentary organization that you can hijack, one on the rise, one from the outside, one on the inside of gaming, working its way out like a Barstool, gives you a competitive advantage than going through the traditional front door, playing an outside game. Sponsorship partnerships with other brands can be a smart inside game. We're showing a couple things here. HyperX is an endemic brand. They make peripherals. They're particularly known for their headsets. Partnering with them is not a bad idea. Nike, like I said, they're the greatest probably sports marketer in the world. And they are just now dipping their toe into the esports world. And they do acknowledge it as a sport. Partnering with them is not a bad way to go. We took a couple of their top athletes and built little mini video games around them by building an avatar of each of those athletes. And we sold out 4 different sets of shoes, one within an hour, 2 within a day, and the last one within a week. So again, major brands are getting into this. They are figuring out the path, partnering with them on the way in. If a high-end brand like Louis Vuitton on the right can end up building the trophy case for League of Legends, any brand can get in. The notion that Louis Vuitton would be a brand that wants to integrate into the world of gamers tells you something about how mature this audience has become. So sponsors can be. And then lastly, when it comes back after COVID, The venues and live events can be a smart inside bet, you know, and a smart side window bet or a smart inside game bet, depending on how you look at it. But you can't do it the traditional way. You can't do dasher boards like we've done in the past as a marketer. You've got to go to something. I went to the Overwatch Championship in Philadelphia pre-COVID last November, 25,000 people in the Wells Fargo Center. And when you went to get your ticket, run, you were handed a piece of wearable technology. That little watch that you watch, piece of wearable technology that you see on the right, very low tech, co-branded with T-Mobile. But whenever anything happened in the game, in the championship, it would light up, it would shake, it made you a part of thing. And oh, by the way, traditional sports like the NBA are now starting to invent with this. Why? Because it's two-way. It's a community. It's not just a one-way, here's a dasher board, take a look. The inside game is to bring them into your world and you participate in a social way in their world. So those are just a couple of many, many, many different inside game ways. We hit leagues, we hit platforms, well, we hit leagues and organizations. One example, and William touched on it, Mixer, platform, outside, okay? That is Microsoft dumping hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars into a platform, thinking that they could come from the outside in. Actually putting Ninja on as their key influencer. Like, you couldn't have gone in a better way, and it failed. Why did it fail? Because it wasn't authentic. It wasn't inside gaming out. Whereas a Twitch, which is now owned by Amazon, but what did start as a gamer-first platform. Again, that you can't get a better example of that. But this is the basic ecosystem. We gave you a couple tips there, and I think that takes us to what any good marketer would do, is the shameless plug. We've been doing this for, like I said, for 25 plus years. We've got one foot in the traditional marketing world, and we've had one foot in this gaming world. There's nothing more exciting. You know, one is the wants, one is the needs, and we've been doing it for a while, and one is the wants, which is the passion around this incredible competitive gaming marketplace that now actually has a platform and a venue known as esports. We'd be happy to give a gamer immersion day for anybody out there, as we have for Nike, DraftKings, Sony, Amazon. That's the shameless plug. Thanks for your time.